Boats full of Rohingya people fleeing camps in Bangladesh continue to arrive in Aceh, stretching local resources and patience. Most of these asylum seekers come to Aceh because the region is directly connected to the Andaman Sea. Using makeshift wooden boats, they risk a 16 to 19 days sea voyage before arriving in the province. The locations where the boats are stranded stretch at several locations. On November 14, the first boat carrying 194 people arrived in PD. Then on the next day, another vessel with 147 people on board entered the same regency. Later, a third ship carrying 256 people was stranded in Biren. The waves of their arrivals in East Aceh and Sabang seem to have no end. The ship's passengers are predominantly minors and women, and they are willing to endure hunger and thirst for days at sea while placed in small compartments.
I'm currently also standing on the deck of the boat, and where I'm stepping on the 4 boxes here, you can see there are 4 boxes on this boat used by Rohingya refugee to sleep over there, because there are actually 233 refugees in this boat, and they came across the ocean until finally they arrived in Aceh. And you can see those small boxes. I don't even know how they could fit on those boxes because there are so many people here. And surprisingly as well, this small boat also has a small toilet, where the small toilet area, I think there is a small toilet over there in the stern behind this boat. And I don't know even how this Rohingya refugee could share only one toilet with 233 people.
The problem of Rohingya asylum seekers began with the decision of Myanmar President Thein Sein in 2012. The Myanmar government at that time considered Rohingya was not part of Myanmar. This situation was made worse by the military junta in 2021, which increasingly subjected this ethnic group to discrimination. The military junta government implemented the Burmanization policies through a model village program, namely building housing specifically for Buddhist people. In the end, the Myanmar government confiscated Rohingyas' land by force, prompting massive burning in Rohingya settlements, forcing many to flee to various countries. One of which is Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, which has become the largest refugee camp in the world for the Rohingya ethnic group.
At 2017, before in 2016 and 2017, 2012 and 2002 and 1982 and 1994 and 1992, the Myanmar, in this date, the Myanmar government was irritated us and killed us and genocide us again and again. It's more time they genocided us, they burnt our village, then we remix our homes in our village. But they again, after 10 years, 5 years later, they again burnt our home. Like this go in the situation. After this, 2017 is where the big genocide on us. So at the times, many of people from us killed by the governments of Myanmar, and many of children, little children was burned in the fire. Many of paralyzed, all men paralyzed, all lady were burned in the fire in our village, in our city.
The dire conditions at Cox's Bazar is one of the reasons for them to seek a better life in other countries and force them to risk their lives on life-threatening sea voyages. Currently, Rohingya asylum seekers are occupying several temporary camps, namely the Mina Raya camp, which accommodates 480 people, and the camp in the Bati Beach area, which accommodates 232 people. According to some records, these asylum seekers have begun to enter Aceh since January 2009, where 193 of them arrived in Sabang. Upon earlier arrivals, locals were very open and welcomed them with open arms for the sake of humanity. However, as the number of Rohingya asylum seekers continued to spike, the locals started to get anxious, despite remaining to provide assistance to them. Later on, many local residents asked these asylum seekers to be immediately relocated. The community believes that they are only a burden for the government who cause problems for the surrounding community.
Yang pertama kan orang ini sampai kan tengah malam, jam 3 malam. Jadi tiba-tiba dari pantai orang ini jalan ke permukiman, dari permukiman digiring ke Menasah, dari Menasah masyarakat agak sempat kaget kok tiba-tiba udah datang orang nih, udah sampai ke permukiman lah. Sampai ke situ masyarakat menyambut dengan ya karena kemanusiaan kan, menyambut dengan baik. Orang ini dikasih tempat untuk mandi sementara, paginya dikasih makan sama masyarakat. Sempat ada penolakan, sebahagian masyarakat jangan dulu. Sampai orang ini sore, malamnya baru dipindah kemari.
Saya lebih baik nggak usah lebih banyak lagi lah Rohingnya di Nasalin ini. Kalau bisa pindahin tempat lain. Kalau bisa pemerintah pusat dipindahin ke tempat yang lebih layak lagi, yang kebanyakan di sini.
Not only from the locals, the request for the Rohingya people to be immediately relocated also came from traditional leaders, including the local traditional sea commander or Panglima Laut. Panglima Laut is a community-based maritime management institution that regulates customary laws about fisheries and to resolve water disputes in Aceh province.
Ya mungkin kalau bagi saya Panglima Laut kemungkinan ke depan bagi saya akan mau cepat-cepat dipindahkan supaya kan masyarakat antara desa Kuli dengan desa Kulam tidak ada amburadul.
Apart from the rejection, how the government treats Rohingya asylum seekers raises social envy among locals as they receive free food and accommodation. Meanwhile, many locals still have to struggle to earn a decent living. The local government ensures that the funds for Rohingya people do not come from the state budget. Instead, all funds come from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and International Organization for Migration.
Kalau masalah pengungsi di sini adalah anggaran semua ditanggung oleh UNHCR atau YOM. Semua kebutuhan. Pemda tidak ada dana apapun, cuma tempat saja. Izin sementara. Saya tidak bisa pastikan berapa lama. Itu tergantung dengan UNHCR dan YOM. Kalau bagi pemerintah Kabupaten PD, mohon segera untuk dipindahkan ke tempat lain.
One of the main reasons why local denied these asylum seekers is because they are often linked to drugs and human trafficking cases.
Ya, kasus-kasus ini memang tidak bisa dipisahkan ya dari pengungsi. Mungkin pertama-tama kita harus pisah-pisahkan. Pengungsi Rohingya ini kan stateless, dia tidak punya kartu identitas apapun. Kalau dia hendak keluar, itu memang nggak ada cara lain. Tidak ada cara lain kecuali menggunakan ya jasa-jasa smuggler itu ya. Di sisi lain itu bagi kita kan sebuah tindakan kriminal. Nah itu karena ada banyak mudaratnya, ada banyak keburukan di dalamnya. Tapi mereka kan orang-orang yang tidak punya pilihan, gitu, sehingga tetap menggunakan jasa itu. Satu, yang kedua soal mereka kemudian meninggalkan camp. Seperti yang kita ketahui, kebanyakan dari pengungsi ini memang bukan bertujuan ke Aceh. Jadi tujuannya biasanya ke Malaysia, Australia, ke negara-negara yang memungkinkan mereka hidup dengan lebih baik gitu. Karena kita tahu kekerasan di Myanmar tinggi, di Bangladesh juga, jadi ada harapan untuk mendapatkan kehidupan yang lebih baik dan lebih layak.
Even though the asylum seekers are UNHCR's responsibility, locals have no rights to them. This is because the government issued Presidential Regulation Number 125 of 2016 concerning the handling of refugees from abroad, stating that asylum seekers must be assisted on humanitarian grounds. The local government will only have to provide temporary accommodation.
Indonesia has not signed the 1951 convention, but it does have a refugee legislation in the form of a presidential decree from 2016. And there you actually have the refugee definition cited in that presidential regulation, while several other areas in terms of roles and responsibilities. This said, the Indonesia government has ratified other relevant conventions, for example, the Convention Against Torture, which states in Article 3 that no state shall return an individual to a territory where he or she has well-founded fear of persecution. Because of that actually means that Indonesia is bound to respect the principle of non-refoulement, which means that you cannot send back a person that has a well-founded fear of persecution to a territory.
Meanwhile, UNHCR is obliged to provide shelter, providing daily food assistance and administrative support. The organization also continues to negotiate with the government to find them a place for the long term.
So UNHCR's role, as I mentioned, we have a mandate to provide international protection and find durable solution in very close cooperation with the governments. And we do that in over 130 countries around the world. And so we do in Indonesia what is being done in Malaysia, in India, in Thailand, in Bangladesh, in Africa, in Europe, in Latin America, and so forth. And we will continue to do that. It is very difficult to say what is the limit. One could say that we have bypassed the limit by far, because the problem that we have in the world today is that wars keep starting, but no one stopped the wars. This is the biggest problem that we have.
In addition, President Joko Widodo stated that the Indonesian government is planning to provide temporary accommodation for these asylum seekers.
Saya sampaikan bahwa sementara kita tampung, sementara, dan kita masih berbicara dengan organisasi-organisasi internasional, UNHCR dan lain-lain, karena memang masyarakat lokal tidak menginginkannya.
On the other hand, Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi promised to continue to push many countries that have ratified the Refugee Convention to open their doors for asylum seekers. Minister Retno Marsudi also asked the international community to pay more attention to the conflict in Myanmar so that the Rohingya ethnic groups can return to their own country.
Selain itu, saya juga menekankan kewajiban menerima resettlement bagi negara pihak konvensi pengungsi. Saya sampaikan, proses resettlement akhir-akhir ini berjalan dengan sangat lambat. Banyak negara pihak bahkan menutup pintu mereka untuk para pengungsi.
The search of Rohingya asylum seekers in Aceh has raised concerns for many, making the government not just sit back and do nothing. Indonesia can only provide temporary shelter and ensure their existence will not disrupt the local communities. Arif Subakti, Erwin Widyastama for See Today.